Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome back Kaitlin Kirk to the podcast. No, but really, I'm so excited to welcome back Kaitlin. This is actually her third podcast episode. It's so fun every year or so, or every few years, hearing an update on her journey. Obviously, I get to hear almost weekly updates on her beautiful business building journey, but I just heard from so many of you that you've been following along on her growing and scaling her business. She's really done it so quickly and created so much amazing financial success. But in the moment, we know that growing a business can feel so challenging. And so I hope that these little highlight reels are inspiring for you as you are in the day-to-day of building your business, whether you are working toward your first six figures, whether you're working towards your first $1 million mark in lifetime revenue, whatever it is. I hope that Kaitlin's story brings you a great perspective. I also encourage you, I'll link episodes 1 and 2 that she did, or the first 2 episodes, because I hope that gives you perspective. As this episode, we talk a lot about the things that bring you multi-six-figure success, right? Move you towards the $1 million mark. And that is working on team and growing team, and working your money mindset and allowing yourself capacity to create more money even when you have enough money, right? It's such a conversation with my clients around like, how do we create from a place of abundance? When we have success, how do we create more success and enjoy that, right? In our time and in our freedom. Kaitlin's created so much time freedom for herself, so much money freedom for herself. And so I hope that this inspires you. And she just did so good at sharing her boots on the ground advice while she's fresh from it, of practical things that she's actually worked on that have brought her more income. And I just want to say thank you, Kaitlin, for sharing your story in such a beautiful way, because I think this behind the scenes stuff needs to happen more between women, and just really sharing sister to sister what is working, what I went through, what's hard, and sharing both the duality of like, wow, I have made a lot of success, but also it was challenging. It really was a lot of personal growth in the process. Okay, tune in, and then please tag us on social media, Kaitlin and I, and share with us what your biggest takeaway was from this episode. And I hope that you enjoy it. Welcome to the Heart-Centered Entrepreneur Podcast. I want you to be rich. Yes, I want abundant financial success for your business. But I don't just care about your business making money. I care about you too. I want you to be rich in happiness, in the impact you make, in your relationships, and in how you give back. I'm Anna. I built my 6-figure business as a side hustle while I was pregnant with my daughter in 2016. Now I've helped dozens of women do the same. I'm here to help you build a profitable, heart-centered, fully booked business with the latest tips on sales and visibility, with proven mindset hacks, and sneak peeks behind the scenes with what's working right now in the online space and in my business. Ready to make more money with heart? Let's go. Hello, friends. I am beyond excited to bring back Kaitlin Kirk. She's done a podcast episode or 2. You know her. You love her. She's amazing. She has good energy. She's a kick-ass accountant and business owner and dog mom. Welcome, Kaitlin. Why don't you reintroduce yourself?
Thank you. I'm Kaitlin. I'm a chartered professional accountant in Canada. I have a small but mighty accounting company that is growing every day, and we support small business owners who are dealing with a lot of emotion around their money, and we are very education first and like warmth first in our approach to accounting, which tends to be a little different than some of the other structures that I've seen. Mm-hmm.
So true. You are such a heart-centered entrepreneur in every sense of the word, and you really care about your clients. And what's been fun for me to see as your coach is, as you've grown your business and company, you've transferred that same care to your team. You've really taken such care and treated your team as in a heart-centered way too.
That's been really important, it turns out. Like, I knew that intellectually, but in hiring, it was so important to hire people that had that same warmth and client first focus. And I've hired people that were not necessarily like that. And it's just not something that you can train or at least that I can't seem to train effectively. So now, as we do our interviewing process, before we even get on the phone with somebody, we ask them questions that require a written long answer, because we want to see how they write. and if it's warm, and if they answer our questions thoroughly, and if they want to have a conversation, versus if we get somebody who's just like, yep, or that was in my resume, I'm not going to even talk to that person, because that's not the kind of person that I want interacting with my clients. So that's even part of the interviewing process now, is how can we ensure that we have people that fit with how I see accounting and can run my processes in a way that is very client centered.
100%, right? And you've really, I think it's so interesting because I think as we grow and scale and hire, a lot of times we're get locked up into like what experience they have and what expertise. And certainly that's important too, to have knowledge of the craft. But I do think it so often is missed is like, what are those bigger picture things we're looking for in hiring, like work ethic, like being heart centered, like liking people, like having integrity.
Yeah, I think those end up being at least as important. And I know that, like, I've heard, I don't know how many people be like, oh, you can teach the skills that you need, but you can't teach the soft skills. And it's just true. Like, I hate that it's true because everybody says it, but it is true. you know, like, there are some things that I refuse to teach. I will not teach corporate taxes to somebody. Like, they do need
Certainly. They need
things.
to go to school for that.
Yeah, but also it's so surprising how quickly people will learn if they have those soft skills. Like, I have a student who I knew was a student, like, in the first couple courses of being an accountant. And she had been working in a firm before, but I just really liked her. And I was like, I don't really have room for a student, but I like you. So I'm going to hire you, knowing full well you don't have the skill level that I need for my like senior accountant role, but I'll keep looking for that, and that's fine. She's now my go-to. She has learned so quickly all of the technical things in the last like 8 months, that if I have something that's difficult to do, or that's a new process, or I've never done it before, so I need somebody that's going to sort of figure it out, and I'm going to support them in doing that, I will go to the student, because she's just exactly the type of human that wants to take on those projects, and she's learned so fast all of those technical things because she is that human. So as much as I hate to admit it,
Yes.
hiring for who somebody is
Yeah.
when they have and you're aware of their skill level,
Yeah.
has just been so critical in my business for sure.
I love that. Okay. Let's back it up a little. I'm like, I just want to dive right in. Tell me, maybe if people have been following or not following your story, maybe just give us a snapshot of like, since we recorded the last podcast, maybe in the last like year or two, what are some of the things you've accomplished in your business that you're proud of? And then we can kind of unpack like how you got there.
Okay. Yeah. Oh man, I have a team now. I know that last time I'm pretty sure I said it exactly like that. I was like, oh, I have a team. Um, but the team is bigger. So now I have accountants who are working and doing the higher level accounting. So I hired the student in January, and then I continue to look for senior accountants. And I now have two senior accountants. And so we've got three accountants, three bookkeepers, and a COO. So the accountants are new from last time. And what that has allowed is that I don't do accounting work so much anymore. And it's so cool. Like, it's cool. I mean, I like accounting, and I do review, and it's not fully hands off, but I don't prepare things anymore. And everybody has been assigned a client. So every client has a team, or at least one person assigned to them if we don't do their bookkeeping. And so if I get an email from somebody, I just tag the person that's assigned to them. And I'm like, hey, so and so has this question. And if it's a technical question, maybe I'll sort of chat with the team member about what our response is going to be. But then they send it, and they handle the client relationships, which is just not really something that I thought I was going to get to, even though that was what I was working for. And so I really got that set up at the beginning of the summer, which has allowed me to do all kinds of CEO projects this summer, which have been incredible in terms of just growth of the company. Like, I haven't seen that growth yet because we're still doing those CEO projects, but the stability of the company is so different from what I've done before. Like in the past, it's been, okay, cool, we're stable. I will now take sales calls again. But it wasn't actively looking to grow exactly. Whereas now it's like, ooh, I have a machine that I've built and it works well. And now my focus is how do I get people who are a good fit for us into the machine? And not to say that we treat everybody the same, but that's not what I mean by machine, but it is very different energy than I have had in the business before. And knowing that as we bring in new people, I don't need to work more hours to make that work. I have the structure, I have the team, and the ability to hire more team because we've refined that process as well. So this is very much like I really feel like my job is the CEO now, and I get to be that. And that's a big difference, I think, since last time. Because I think last time I was like close to there, but I wasn't quite there. Yeah, so that's been huge for me.
So much to celebrate and be proud of, right? I think about like the first chapter of growth in your business where you were really figuring out how to streamline selling and onboarding clients and streamlining the process for clients, right? And I think now you've really streamlined the process for onboarding and like team, right? That's a whole nother layer. And I just am so proud of you. Like you really have worked your booty off to, I mean, I think people hear like, oh, build a business that doesn't need you. It sounds like so fun and easy and sexy, but truly it is a lot of strategic work, mindset work, right? Like maybe talk to me about anything you want, but like some of the challenges that came about for you as you were truly creating a business where you could go off to a foreign country and vacation, or like what came up for you around making yourself unnecessary in the business, basically, or
So
less
many
necessary.
things.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, there's like the team part and being a good leader and like what you need to be able to do that. And like I had trouble with avoiding problems. And I had a really like I was the kind of person that would bend over backwards trying to make it work so I didn't have to bring up a problem to somebody else, which just can't happen if you're leading other people because otherwise, why do they work for you? Like you might as well just do their job if
Who's
you're not
working for
gonna do
who?
them.
Who's working
Yeah.
for who?
So learning to be able to communicate in a clear but kind way was so hard. And not because of the tactical things, those things were actually fairly easy. It was like from a step by step actually doing them sort of thing, but like getting over that idea of telling somebody they're doing it wrong and that was somehow offensive. Like now, if somebody works for me and they're not meeting deadlines, I will literally write the words to them, if you cannot meet deadlines, you cannot work here. And it's not that I'm being mean about it. Wherein in the past, I'd be like, oh my God, I can't say that to
I
somebody.
would
That's so
exactly,
rude.
exactly. Yeah. I would
But
never
it's
say that to someone, right?
but the people that I've said that to clean it up. They go, okay, great. Think like, they sometimes are a little bit shook by that, but
Yeah.
they either clean it up or they don't. And there you go. Like,
They can find a better job. That's a better
like
fit, right?
yeah, like maybe a small business doesn't work for them. Maybe they need to be in a bigger business where deadlines are a little more fluid. And that's
Yes.
fine. It's just not a good fit for us. So that was a huge one. And
Huge.
hiring people not just because I liked them. I know how I just said that you need to hire for
Yeah,
soft
yeah,
skills,
yeah,
but also you can't just be like, I like this person, I'm going to hire them. Like there's specific criteria that you need to understand for your business. So there's things that work for
yes.
me, but not is going to work for everybody. And I need to hire based on those. So I have employees who I like and I respect as humans, but I would never be friends with. And
Yeah.
they are some of my best teammates because they fit what the company needs, not what I need in a friend. And
Yeah.
trying to, and just like separating those things, it took a long time because it was difficult to articulate. It was difficult to understand how come this person doesn't fit. They like, I like them, why don't they fit in the culture? And it's like, well, because you didn't hire for the culture, you hired for like hanging out on a Saturday kind of thing. So
Yes.
that was a big one. But then also, like, all of that aside, the idea that my business doesn't need me is also a tricky one. Because if your business doesn't need you, then like, what are you doing kind of thing? I'm not articulating that very well, but like,
You are.
I feel like it's a little like, well, I don't have kids, so I don't know. But it's like when a kid goes off to college and then you're like, well, now what? And
Yes.
uh, for me anyway, I needed to be really careful. There have been seasons where the business needs me less and seasons where the business needs me more. Some of those seasons are called tax season. And I in the seasons where it doesn't need me, but I don't have a clear direction as to what I'm doing next, I start tinkering with things that ought not be tinkered with. And
Yes.
that's the
You're like, I
problem.
have to do something, right?
Yeah. So when the business doesn't need me, I need to be very careful about where I put my energy because that can be destructive or disruptive, more disruptive, not really destructive. So there is definitely a mindset that of like, okay, if I'm not needed in this capacity, how am I needed? And how does that role change as the business changes? And not making yourself wrong for not knowing what that is immediately.
Yeah. This is such an important conversation because I've seen so many women get success and then basically blow it up, right? In some way. Because I do think like as productive, ambitious women, we like to work, right? And so I do think we're trying to like work ourselves out of a job, but as soon as we do, we're like, what is it, right? And I just think this is such an important conversation around creating success and sustaining it, creating wealth and holding the wealth and being okay with holding more money. Like, and I think you've done so masterfully in the long term of your business of really being able to create success, but also hold that success and acclimate to that success, acclimate to the wealth. Like, what are your thoughts around that?
Well, two things come out for me there. One, I'm real bad at celebrating wins. So in a lot of cases, those successes come and I'm like, well, oh, fine. I mean, I guess I did that thing. This doesn't really seem all that great to me anymore. Or that wasn't that hard, like hair flip.
Yeah, yeah.
I, so I kept moving the signpost. But also a learning curve has been, what do you do with whatever you like? I don't want to say get because it's not a thing, but like, what do you do with the success when you get it? So I'll give you an example. One of the things is like free time. Like if you're working in your business and you're like, okay, my goal is to only be working 20 hours a week. That's a great goal. But if you get there and you don't have anything to do with that time, that's not great. And you either end up bored, which, pros and cons, that boredom is a whole other thing, but or you end up tinkering with things that you shouldn't be tinkering with, or you start taking over things in your business that you probably could outsource. Like it just, if you don't have something to do with that time, it ends up not being a great, like too much of something kind of thing. Or money is another example that like I made X amount of money and then I was comfortable. Like the bills were getting paid. I was saving. I sort of got to a point where I was like, this is great. This is all I need. And it wasn't until you pushed me to be like, okay, great. That's great. This is your new zero. This is your new normal. What does the next step look like? And I think I fought you on that for like a year. I'm
No,
like,
no, it was just a few sessions. It wasn't a year. It was like a few sessions, right?
all right, fine, a few sessions a year or whatever. But it wasn't until you sort of pushed me to say, okay, what is the next thing? That I really, and so I got I got invested in investing. Ha ha ha. I really started to get sucked into like, how can I use my money to make money? And so now, like, I'm excited about that. And I sort of like, I spend time doing that, arguably too much time doing that. But I'm not day trading. This is not a day trading thing. It's just a how can I use my money to make money? And so, funny enough, I think that was like 3 or 4 months ago where I was like, okay, we're doing this thing now. This is one of these CEO things. And once I decide I'm going to do something and I have the time for it, it gets done. Like I'm sure most of your clients are like that because they're ambitious women and,
Yes.
and so I created a plan. And then in the months since then, the company has made significantly more money. And I don't know that it's because like there's a lot of things that happened for that to happen, but definitely knowing where that money was going and have a reason for it was a big one,
Yes.
I think.
Yes.
So just having what are you going to do with the thing that you're working towards? Because
Yes.
getting there with no plan is not great, in my experience, anyway.
Yeah. And I think you hit the nail on the head with like, as a smart woman, doing the thing actually isn't that hard, but like letting it feel safe for it. Right. And so, like you said, like if you're trying to work 20 hours a week, but you don't like your life, you're not going to want to free up more time because it's just more time being miserable versus you're so good at having your volleyball hobby and all of that stuff, right? Same thing with money, right? Like if we feel like where are we going to put the money, we don't have an investment plan and strategy or goals or things that feel fun to spend our money on, right? You're so good at being generous with your money, Kaitlin, right? And if we don't have that, it's like, why would I make more money? Because it's just going to be either a waste or there's no purpose there, right? And so really creating that vacuum of it's almost like at the start when you're like, ooh, I need to make money to live. Like that same thing, it's like creating that need or that purpose to create that thing.
Yeah. And like, don't get me wrong, I love seeing money in a bank account. Like, I'm not a spender because I like to see it in the bank account. I like to have money. I'm a little bit obsessed with money, which is great being an accountant.
It's perfect. It's perfect.
But even having money in a bank account, I got to a point where I was like that next dollar didn't give me the same dopamine hit.
Yeah, because it
So,
was enough, right? It wasn't, you would master that level.
yeah, and like my personal investments and stuff like that, I'm like, yeah, like I'm gonna retire. Like if I keep on keeping on, I'll retire comfortably, and it's fine. So even for somebody who just enjoys looking at money in her bank account, it still wasn't enough. Like I needed something else to get to the next level of whatever, of the money. I needed something else to do with my time when I got to that point of being able to work part-time. So yeah, just very important to have those things. And strangely enough, they need to be figured out before you have them because
Which
you
is bizarre, right?
yes, that you pushed me to have things to do with my time before I had time to do them. Because the idea being those things would draw me out of the business and I would stop doing the unnecessary, busy, but moderately productive things. And it's true. And it's the same with money. If you have a place for it, it won't just go away or it won't just like sort of sit in a bank account or whatever. So funny enough, it works the reverse way of what you would think.
I agree. It's like, that concept of like, oh, I'll figure it out when I get there. Well, you're probably not going to get there if you don't figure that out first,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, 100%.
Let's go back because I think it's such an important conversation. What you were saying about that skill set, because I think this is so useful as people listen to the podcast and think through, like, what are the skill sets that get me to certain places in business? And I do think that element of team that you've mastered, so many elements within team, but the one you discussed, which is like being able to be direct, be able to have conflict, be able to, as a leader, as a boss, right? Those are things a lot of times, skill sets we go to the grave not having to have created as a normal human. But as a business owner or as a team leader, we do have to have that skill set of like being okay if people are mad at us, being direct, giving feedback. Like, talk to me about some of that, like when it was hard, because now it's easy, but talk to me. Maybe there's someone listening that feels really hard. What are some advice you'd give them as they are working on that skill set of managing team and stuff like that?
Managing team is not one skill. And it's hard because there are so many skills And because you're dealing with humans, it's not a if this, then this. If I lift this weight enough times, my arm will get bigger. That's how it works. I just have to push through that and do this thing. It's very linear, like weightlifting is very linear. And I use that example because that's like a thing that I've started doing with my time.
Yeah. Speaking of hobbies.
Speaking of hobbies, strangely enough, I like to pick up heavy things and then put them back down. So I think being a leader is a really difficult skill because it's not one skill,
Yeah.
and it's not linear. And it's the thing that doesn't feel like you're making progress. And it's the thing where you can do all the right things and it still doesn't work, you know? So I know you like to use the term messy middle. Sometimes the messy middle is very long. I think I've been working on this for like 2.5 years, like, which is so hard for me specifically because I'm a sprinter. Like if I need to get something done, even if it's a mindset thing, whatever, 90 days. Like I can work real hard for 90 days and I will get a thing done. But this 2.5 years thing, like I'm pretty sure, I don't know how many times I said to you, like, this is the thing I'm never going to figure out. And it's difficult to see progress because it's difficult to see the little things that are getting better until it sort of all comes together. It's a little like, I don't know if you've read any James Clear. He did Atomic Habits, but he talks about like 1% better. That like if you can just be 1% better in like a bunch of things, that's not a lot better in those things, but together, like if it's 10 things, that's 10% better. But you don't have to be 10% better at one thing. So that team is a lot like that, where it's sort of iterative and you sort of get 1% better on this, and then you get 1% better on that. And then, overall it ends up being 10% better. And then you're like, okay, now that I've learned I can go back to like X and let's try and improve that a little bit. Okay, great. X is now 1% better. Well, T needs like that T is the next thing that needs to be like improved by 1%. And you just sort of keep doing it and you don't really see any results. And then eventually it's like, oh, like, oh, I understand now. And this doesn't need to be it doesn't need to be hard. Even like I don't love that I said it that way because it is hard. It's not like somebody's deciding that it's hard, but it's like all the things need to sort of come together at once, and it's not one thing. It's like that idea of the ice cube in the refrigerator or the freezer, and then you sort of it's -20 and you turn it up 1 degree and 1 degree and 1 degree. And it's not until that last -1 to 0, I'm talking in Celsius, I'm not sure if it's the same in Fahrenheit, that you see the ice cube melt. But you needed 20 degrees before that one.
Yeah. Yep.
So it's
And then
yeah.
it's like an overnight success. And you're like, oh my God, this was not an overnight success, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And working through all of those fears and and I think for me anyway, getting to a certain point, I almost gave myself permission in this one area of my life to just be direct, and it was required and it
Mm.
was my job. And it's permission, I guess, that I needed from myself to do my job for my team,
Mhm.
to help my clients. That's well, now that I'm saying it out loud.
Yeah, no, but it is the hard. Most people don't figure that out, right? And I think too, it has to be evidence of you doing that and then it working and or it feeling safe, right? If we've had experiences in our life where it hasn't been safe to be direct or whatever thing, right? I just think it's very complex conversation and literally why most adults, our brains become somewhat permanent in our early 20s and we live that way the rest of our life. It really does take work to rewire our brains, right? And what came up for me too is you're someone that is more, obviously, you're an accountant, you're more linearly thinking, you're really smart. So you're probably used to getting instant gratification, right? So talk to me about what it was like to work on these people skills. Let's say they were 10 little micro skills, right? To work on it and to endure and tolerate being bad at it, right? And something that is not linear, something that is more people gray. Like, talk to us about how you hung in there, because for my clients that get to, where you are at financially, I really see the willingness to not just be like, oh, I'll work on this thing for 2 weeks, but damn it, I'm going to work on this thing until I figure it out, whether it's 2 months or 2 years. Like, what gave you the tenacity for that, I guess?
I feel like tenacity and tolerate are strong words because I'm pretty sure at some points you pulled me through it, kicking and screaming. Like, I think there were times when I was like, I'm not doing this. And I would just like quit. I mean, not quit, not really quit, because it's like, it's a little like you're walking for a long time and then the walking gets hard. I don't hike, but I assume this is what hiking is like. And then you like get to a hill and you're like, this is going to suck and I'm going to quit, but your body just keeps walking. I think there were definitely times when I was like, I quit and this sucks, but you can't stop. You like, what's the alternative? I think I said this on a previous episode, but like, what's the alternative here? Because once you're in it and you need team, you're now in a position where you need team. So either you need to figure it out or you need to restructure the company. Restructuring the company is a full on, I give up and I'm not doing this anymore of the team thing, but it also means your business is very much limited. Like, which is like some people make that choice. And if you make that choice out of a place of like, this is what I really want, great, like, great. But for me, growth is not really an option because I have this tinkering problem. So if I'm not growing, I'm, I'm not tackling new problems, I will self-destruct a little bit. So growth is not really an option for me. So it wasn't like, I don't know, I'm not sure that it was a choice so much as I can't not do this. There is no other option. There's no like, I can't do this done for you service by myself. I can't. So the alternative is to close up and go work for somebody else, which I have taken active steps to do. But then I had a coaching session, I'm pretty sure, and you're like, well, let's talk this through a little bit. And I think, you talk me off a ledge. And then, things happen and you keep on keeping on and things are seasonal. So, it's difficult. Yes, it's been a hard 2.5 years. Has it been a slog the entire 2.5 years? No. There have been times of when it's hard. There have been times when I'm like, I can't put the energy into this to really do the personal work for whatever reason. And so it sort of gets backburnered a little bit. And I sort of keep on keeping on in the sense that like it's still happening and I do still have team, but I'm just like, all right, we're going to have a little grace at the moment. We're just going to sort of allow it to be imperfect. And then I will come back to this with some real, gusto when I have the space for it, usually in the summer.
Yeah, I think that's so important because I think you've done so masterfully at working at scaling your business, but also like taking breaks, right? Like, obviously, you're still, as a business owner, taking a break from scaling just means you're still busy serving clients. And so, like, you're still working, right? But taking a break from the proactive growth. And I just think, especially as ambitious women, we need to learn that, like, sometimes we can see a problem, but be like, I'm not going to solve that today, right? Like, I could do the healthy thing, but I don't want to, or whatever. Like, that's okay, right? And just giving yourself permission to not always be in growth optimal state, but knowing that you're still going to grow when you rest, do a little push, rest, do a little push, right?
Yeah. And in those rest periods, do the thing in your business that you love doing. Don't just, trade the
Yes.
hard work of one thing for something else because that's not resting.
Yes.
That's just
Yes.
burnout, you know? So in those moments of like, I'm not going to do team, I do process stuff because that's what I love to do. I
Yes.
will I'll be like, okay, so we're gonna do tax season next year. We're gonna do it better. How can I write out exactly what I'm doing? How can I optimize? What's my client journey? Like I love that stuff. So when I'm resting, that's what I'm doing. All the stuff that I feel guilty about doing because I've got like other things that need to get done, I just do those things. And I'm like, yeah, this is work too. And I'm happy doing this. So I'm just going to do this for a bit.
I love that. And the reminder that even when you scale and grow out of your business, like ideally we still love it, right? Like even if obviously you're not doing accounting work, but like you don't hate accounting, right? Like if you have to like sub in, you're like, ooh, I get to be in my little spreadsheets, right? Or like, so I just think it's such the reminder. I think so often women say or come to me saying like, oh, I'm going to build this, but I can't wait to scale it because I don't really like my business. I just want to have the scaled version of it. But the truth is we're always going to be, even when we're scaled out of it, involved or invested or plugged in or having to sub in for our team. So I just think you've been such a good example of enjoying the scaled, but be always being willing to do the work, right?
Yeah, I would be a little bit cautious. If you're thinking to yourself that I only want the scaled up version of my business, I don't want the business that it is now, that's probably not true because the scaled up version of the business is still your business. So, whatever choices you've made to create the business you have now that you don't like, unless you know, like, unless you can figure out on a smaller scale how to make it work in a way that you like it, it's just going to be worse when it gets bigger because you're going to keep making the same choices. And if you don't know why you're making those choices or they just feel right, but ultimately you get to a place where you don't, it doesn't work for you and you're not really willing to change it, I'm not sure that that's true. It's not really, the grass is not really greener on the other side, you know?
That. And I just wish we could like blast this message to the whole internet because you have no idea how common this is. And I don't really know quite where it comes from. I'm trying to figure it out. But there really is this belief that, my belief is the best way to get to your first six figures is making a job for yourself that you love mostly and not making yourself wrong for it.
Mhm.
Right? Like people say like, "Oh, don't trade time for money." But like it's actually not that bad if you're trading time for doing something you love and having nice clients and right? And then from there, what's the best way to scale? Right? Obviously there's multiple paths and you've chosen the beautiful team path. But I just think like that is the fastest way, but really women get so locked into getting clear on their scaling thing and feeling like they're going to have to tolerate six figures. But like you said, then you're never going to get to the six figures to start.
Yeah, and ultimately, you don't know what you want your job to look like in a scaled up company when you don't have the scaled up company because you can't know. And
You
even like
can't.
even at where I'm at now, I don't try to project ahead to what the company's going to look like. I have some ideas,
Yeah.
and I like it's not just blindly going, but
Yeah.
also I don't know how things are going to break. I don't know what the business is going to need from me. And so it's more of a like when the business gets to be scaled to a certain point, it's more of a negotiation with the business, like because it's its own thing. So it's not, it's a little like having, well, I don't have kids. It's a little like having a dog. Like the dog has his own personality. You can be like, don't eat that thing. But if it wants to eat the thing, it's probably going to eat the thing. So it is more of a negotiation when you get to scaled up. So I just don't think that you can know. And so if you can create a job for yourself that you really like, you're going to have way more energy to scale it, but also you're going to be able to create a job for your team that they're going to like. And then you're going to have team to help you to scale the company. And you're going to be able to support that team member to
Because you
be
know
the
what the
best.
hell is going on.
Yeah, exactly. So, yeah, it's that's I agree with you. Create a job that you like and then figure out a way to make it bigger. Like the first thing that I outsourced was admin, not accounting, because
Mm.
I'm good at accounting. I like doing accounting. Admin is not what I'm good at. Even though it's more CEO related because it's business related, that was the first thing I outsourced because I had a job that I liked for myself.
And maybe let's go there a little bit. Like when you did let go of a lot of the accounting, like in the moment, were there any parts that were, because a lot of times, even when women know, like, "Ugh, I want to scale this and I want to eventually either hire, basically replace a big part of myself. What was the hardest thing about letting go of some of the accounting work?
I like my clients. Like I really like them and I have relationships with them. Like especially in the accounting industry, you really intimately know these people because money, like I can look at, a few months worth of bank transactions and I can tell you a lot about this person.
Yes,
Um,
yes. It's very
so
intimate.
yeah, you have these relationships with your clients. So giving that up, I mean, they can always talk to me. I'm not gone, but it's the sort of day-to-day, like regular interactions that I've now given to the team to cultivate. Um, yeah, like that's kind of hard and it's sort of bittersweet. And, I have, a few clients that I just refuse to give up. Like I have one monthly client who pays very little because she's not very big. And we have a monthly meeting that arguably a bookkeeper could do. Like she does not need a full-fledged CPA, let alone the owner to be doing it. Not that I'm like better than my accountants, but
Yeah.
I just love meeting with her so much. So I continue to meet with her. It's not really like the time and money exchange is not worth it by any means, but I don't care because I just love talking to her. So there's that sort of, there's good things to give up because I built the job that I like. But I've also like this new job I also really like. But the Kate that built that first job, one, would have hated the job that I have now because she didn't have the skills to do it. And two, would not have been able to design this job because she didn't know what the business was going to need. Like 5 years ago, I couldn't have told you this is what the business was going to look like. Like I said, had some ideas and it was the general direction. We have made it like the general direction is the same. It looks roughly like what I thought it was going to look like. But yeah, 5 years ago, Kate would have hated this job and would have been real bad at it. So yeah, I just think that like it's interesting how we change with our business and that sometimes it is bittersweet giving up some of the things that we like to do in exchange for the new things that we like to do. And ultimately, if your goal is to work fewer hours, that means giving up more things that you like.
Yeah. And I love that example too. I mean, that was just a truth bomb right there. It's true. Like we want to work fewer hours but that will mean if we love our job, letting go of doing things that we love, right? And I love that example too though of we don't always have to make the financially savvy decision, right? We like yes, we want to mostly be financially savvy, but we can have a side of like doing things we like. Again, about even at every level in our business, am I creating a job for myself that I love? Even if it's a new job description, even if I'm having to let go as like do I still love my job? If not, why am I even doing this? Right. But like, can this be something that I enjoy and be even better than my last position? Right.
Yes. And how do I not hate the parts that suck? It's a little like I'm good at accounting because the parts that other people suffer through, I don't think are that bad. Like looking through
Yes.
lines and lines and lines of bank statements looking for something, I don't really find it that bad. Or
Yeah.
like, something doesn't reconcile because I'm out by like 50 cents. I will happily sit there for 3 hours trying to find that 50 cents. Is that a good idea? Not always, but I don't find it that bad. And some
Yeah.
people would hate that. And so they're not going to survive. Like they're not going to make it if they absolutely hate it. So creating a job for yourself where even the times that suck or the parts of it that other people would absolutely hate, you sort of don't think are that bad. And
Yeah.
so the things that you absolutely hate, address them. Do not just
Yes.
suffer through them, address them.
Yes. Yeah, such a good point. And I actually think over your journey, Kaitlin, you've actually gotten better and better at identifying what are the things that I hate that I just really hate, and what are the things that I hate but I can tolerate because I know there's going to be reward and payoff for me, right?
Mm-hmm. And how those those things that I hate or the things that I am tolerating but I want to give up, spending the time to sit in the discomfort to figure out a way to do it that makes sense for somebody else. Because it's not really okay to have a problem and hire someone to solve it. It's better
Yes.
to solve the problem and hire someone to execute it. And I have made that mistake because ultimately they don't it just doesn't work for someone to come in and try and solve a problem for you.
I mean, that could be a whole nother podcast episode in itself. Like, I think it's so true, right? And this brings me back to like your job. Like, what's your job as the CEO, right? And maybe you can give people a quick snapshot of like, what is your job now specifically in your business?
My job is to support my team, to make sure that they get their questions answered, to provide guidance for them in ways like standard operating procedures or researching ways to do things better. So, what I mean by that is like we have a receipt management app that we use because it's more effective to do it that way than to just literally look at PDFs of receipts. Now, that's not something like I have implemented that years ago, but that's an example of like I went and found out the best way to support my team in doing this redundant task. And then we implemented sort of thing. So supporting the team, making sure they have what they need to succeed, being able to answer their questions, providing training for them when they need it, that sort of thing. So that's a huge one. Sales is also part of my job for now. I enjoy the sales process and I think it's a good I've done it enough times now that I can it's sort of a vibe check. Like there's sometimes when I get a weird vibe, even though this person on paper would be a good fit, I'm like, I don't think so. So sales is still part of my job. Process improvement because I love doing that. But also, how can we make a better environment for the clients to live in? And like I just created a referral program, for example, which I'm pretty happy about. And I think that that helps in the client experience because it's like, hey, I appreciate when you tell people about us. Hey, I trust you to make a good referral. Like, please, like we are a community. I appreciate you. So I'm gonna, there's a bit of reciprocal in nature, that referral program. Or like, what's the next thing that we're doing? And I respond to client emails sometimes. Mostly I tag my teammate. I look for ways to market the company that's not just social media because somebody else does social media for me. Yeah, I guess it's really just making sure the team has what they need on a day-to-day basis and ensuring that the company is headed in a direction that fits with our vision and sort of figuring out what the best way to do that is. And sometimes that means asking my team, hey guys, what do you guys think?
Yeah, I think you summed it up so well. And it really is, like you said, managing team, managing the vision, problem solving. Like that's a full job. And I just think it like that takes a lot of time. Oh, like a lot of resources, a lot of energy, a lot of mindset work, right? And so I just think part of the interesting thing is, even as we say it, we're like, oh, really? But that is a huge job, right?
And the bigger the company gets, the bigger the job gets. So a
Yes.
hiring team to do the accounting work so that I can spend time doing the CEO work is how I grow the company because ultimately I'm really like if I have to be an accountant and a CEO, I'm not really a very good accountant. And it's not because I'm a bad accountant, it's just because I'm trying to do
Right.
two jobs at the same time. So if I can
Yes.
hire somebody that's as good as me or better than me, even better if they're better than me at accounting, great. I'm going to do that because that means they're going to be way better at that job than I am because they're only doing one job. And I get to do this CEO work, which ultimately does sort of like it grows as the company grows, but the more you do it, the more you're like, "Ooh, and this other thing," and like sort of like a snowball picking up snow.
I love that so much. I just love your excitement so much. Okay, as we get close to wrapping up, tell me like what do you feel like the 2 year ago Kaitlin would say or be most proud of you now for looking at where you're at today through maybe she got a little glimpse of all the ups and downs you had to go through and where you're at right now, what would she be most proud of?
That I have a team that I can trust and that I get to do CEO work. Like, I love doing that so much. It is literally the thing that I do while I'm procrastinating. Or it's the thing that I'm like, okay, you get to do CEO work if only you can do these 10 tax returns or whatever it is. It's
Yeah.
sort of like the carrot at the end of the work that I'm doing. So the fact that my job now is just CEO work is like, oh, so she'd be like, girl, I'm coming. I'm going to get there.
Yes. And what advice would you give your maybe there's someone listening to the podcast that's in your 2 year go self position where maybe they've started doing team, but like maybe they hired someone, then they had to fire someone, right? Maybe they just like, "Oh, I don't even have a team. This isn't even helpful. This is taking more time, right? Like maybe I should just get a day job or go back to solopreneurship, right? What advice would you give her, yourself, someone in that position of trying to figure out team stuff?
Team stuff is worth spending the time on. It is not something that can be rushed. It is not something that can be done in a way that's sort of, yeah, it'll probably work because it will not. It will not work if it's only half done. And you can't build a solid business if the foundation is only sort of half done. So if you're building team and you're like, oh, this is hard, whatever, it is hard. This is why not everybody has scaled businesses. This is the hard
Yes.
part that they talk about. And it's worth it to really sit in the discomfort and figure it out. Because if you don't, ultimately something will crumble.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that from experience. Multiple times I have thought that I'm at the place that I'm at now. Multiple times I've been like, oh, my job is CEO work and I don't do accounting anymore, blah, blah, blah. But I don't have like somebody in the team is not the right fit. And I put way too much load on that person and they don't work out for whatever reason. And then I have an even bigger load because now I've grown my job as a CEO and now I have a full time job
Yeah.
as an accountant.
Yeah.
So it's really worth it to spend the time in the discomfort of team if that's where you're at. And if you're somebody who's thinking, well, I don't even have team, this isn't really, useful or whatever, I would suggest that understanding what you want from the company is really a good way of understanding how you're going to grow moving forward or if you're going to grow. I know that seems really straightforward, but I really don't see a way of growing without hiring people. And I don't mean
100%.
employees, they don't have to be full time, whatever. Like, nobody that works for me is full time. I only have, like, I think only half of them are employees. Some of them are contractors. Some of them have their own teams that they're working with. Like, it can be whatever you need it to be. I think I hired my admin for 10 hours a month when I first hired her. And now she works like 50 hours a month or 60 hours a month because her job just kept growing. But I really can't see a way to grow the company or create a company that doesn't need you or create a company that you can work part-time in but pays you a full-time salary without a team.
Yeah.
So if you're feeling like, no way, man, I can do this without a team, I would just caution what life looks like if you don't
You're
have
wrong.
support.
And
Um,
I love that so much. And it's true. Like, I feel like it's like I always say, like, what's more important than being fully booked is knowing how to get fully booked. Right. I think with team, you've really mastered like not just having a dream team, but like knowing that, knock on wood, they all leave tomorrow, you could build it again because
yeah.
F, like, like it's that skill set, right? Of knowing how to hire, knowing how to fire, knowing that.
Yeah, I right now there's 8 of us. There was 9, except this month, uh, somebody lasted 2 weeks. I hired them in April. They said, "Oh, I can't work till August." And I was like, "That's fine." And so I filled her position and then she got to, a week before she was supposed to start, "Oh, I can't start till October." And I was like, "Well, that's not going to work. You either start now or you don't start." She's like,
Yep.
"Okay, we'll make it work." And then 2 weeks later, she quit. So
Yep.
even now, even though she was a great fit for me, even though all the things were in the right place and I've learned all these things, it still doesn't work sometimes. And
Yeah, just like when you have a client, maybe a client quits early, right? Or like that's not the thing. The thing is like knowing I can easily rehire.
yeah, like I think I fired 15 people and I've now like the 7 people that work for me are the 7 that I've figured out. But like I fired way more people than currently
Yep.
work for me. So this is
Yep.
not like this is an iterative process and you're going to have way more failures than success. And that's just how it works. That's just how it works.
Just like anything in business, right? In order to get to the like 10 yeses of clients, we have to hear 30 no's, right? And I think like entrepreneurship is just that lesson of you're going to have the micro failures on the way to this. Like there's literally no way around it, right?
Yeah, and the funny thing is, I sort of think about like if somebody were to ask me like, tell me about something that you've overcome or tell me about your biggest failures. It's like I can't really list them. Like I'm not sure off the top of my head that I know what my failures are. It's like I can tell you the hard parts of business. I can tell you the things that were hard, but I can't really epic fails. Like I don't know. I don't know.
I love this so much. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I feel like this is the behind the scenes stuff that is so useful to women in entrepreneurship. Tell if women are listening to you and they want to follow along on your journey, just a fangirl, or maybe they're like, actually, I live in Canada and I need an accountant, right? Like tell people how they can connect with you, follow you, have them on you on their podcast, all the things.
So the website is a great place to get started with learning all about Kirk CPA. That's kirkcpa.ca. If you want to book a call with me, you can through the website, all the things. My Instagram is at Kaitlin Kirk CPA. And I have a YouTube channel also at Kaitlin Kirk CPA. So if you're in Canada and you need some tax help, go check out some of those videos because I did YouTube live every day for a year for some reason. But
In your visibility era. She was in her visibility era.
I was. And it was the pandemic and, all the things. So, yeah. So there, please.
I love that. I will make sure to put all of your links in the podcast episode. But again, thank you so much, Kaitlin, for it is courageous to share your story. But I just think like more women need to hear these practical pieces. So thank you so, so much.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thanks for hanging out today. Please hit that subscribe button so you can make sure to stay updated anytime a new episode drops. And I would love for you to join me in my free Facebook community. It's called The Heart-Centered Entrepreneur. We discuss the podcast episodes. I regularly go live and do free trainings. And you may even meet your newest biz bestie. So you can join at heartcenteredcommunity.com. It's absolutely free, and I cannot wait to see you in there.